I never thought I'd see him again. Not like this, not after everything that happened. Mia Thompson stared out the window, watching the movers unload boxes from a sleek black SUV into the newly purchased building next door. Luke. After all these years, there he was. She should have been prepared, but she wasn't. Her heart raced as memories of their turbulent past came flooding back. She turned away from the window, trying to push the thoughts aside. But they had a life together. A long one filled with dreams, promises, and love. Until it all fell apart. She shook her head. No. Not now. She had 3 little reasons to keep her focus, 3 secret lives she had to protect. The triplets. His children. Her children. Mia had raised them on her own, never once telling Luke that they were his. That secret was hers to carry. But now? Now it felt like the walls were closing in. She watched him walk into the building next door, confidently like he owned the world. But this wasn't the world he remembered. It was hers. And the triplets, his children, were right there, under his nose, living in the same building. How long would it take before the truth came out? Mia tried to distract herself by focusing on the kids, but her thoughts kept returning to Luke. He had no idea. He had no idea that the 3 children running around her apartment were his. Her heart fluttered with both fear and excitement. Would he find out? She couldn't let that happen. Not yet. Not ever. The doorbell rang. Mia took a deep breath, preparing herself for what was coming next. Luke had always been unpredictable, always determined to get what he wanted. He'd never let go of things he thought were his, and now she was about to find out how far he was willing to go to uncover the secrets she had buried so deep. She glanced at the kids, now playing quietly in the corner. They were too young to understand. They didn't know who their father was, not yet. Mia just hoped they wouldn't ever have to. She opened the door, and there he was, standing in front of her. Luke. His eyes narrowed as he stepped inside, his gaze scanning the room. Mia, he said, his voice low, his tone hard to read. You've been hiding something from me. Mia's heart skipped a beat. How much did he know? She struggled to keep her composure. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb with me. I bought the building next door and I've seen the kids. They're familiar. Mia's stomach dropped. He knew. He had to know. The truth was out, and Mia could feel the weight of it crashing down on her. What now? I did what I thought was best for them. The words echoed in Mia's mind as she stood there, trying to keep her composure. Luke's face softened for a moment, but it didn't last long. His eyes were full of confusion and pain. He had always been a man of control, a man who didn't like surprises, especially not ones that turned his world upside down. And this was a shock. The truth of the matter was, Mia had kept the children away from him, not because she hated him, but because she wanted to protect them. She wanted to protect them from the world that Luke was a part of. She wanted them to grow up in peace, without the constant drama and chaos of his life. But now, with everything out in the open, Mia could feel that peace slipping away. She didn't know how to fix this. She had always thought that one day Luke would come back, and they would have to face this together. But now, standing in front of him, she realized just how unprepared they both were. Luke took a step forward, his expression shifting from disbelief to something more intense. How could you think this was the right decision? His voice trembled, but there was no anger in it. Only hurt. Mia swallowed, her throat tight. I did what I thought would give them a better life, she said, the words coming out stronger than she felt. I didn't want them to grow up in the middle of all of this. She waved her hand around, gesturing to the world outside, the one full of power struggles and never-ending expectations. I didn't want them to feel like they had to live up to some idea of who their father is. I didn't want them to be part of that. Luke stared at her, taking in her words. He wanted to understand, but it was hard to reconcile the Mia he had known with the one standing in front of him now, the woman who had hidden their children from him for so long. I don't know what to say to you, he said softly, the frustration in his voice almost drowned out by a deep sigh. I've missed so much. He ran a hand through his hair, as if the weight of the situation was suddenly hitting him. I never knew. I never even thought to ask. And now I'm right here and they're right here and I don't know what to do with any of it. Mia's heart clenched at his words. She had known this moment would come one day, But that didn't make it any easier. Luke was trying to process everything, and she knew he wasn't ready for this. He wasn't ready for the idea of being a father to 3 children he hadn't even known about. "We need time," Mia said quietly, her eyes not meeting his. "We both need time to figure out what happens next." Luke nodded slowly, his gaze still fixed on her. "I get that. I do. But it doesn't change the fact that we're here now. And I'm not just going to walk away from this." His voice was firm, but there was a vulnerability in his eyes that Mia hadn't seen in years. The man who had once been so confident, so sure of himself, was now uncertain. "I'm not asking you to walk away," Mia said, her voice steady. "But I need you to understand that I've spent years keeping them safe from a world I knew would only bring them trouble. They don't need your world. They need you. In a way that's different from what you've always known." Luke took a deep breath, trying to process everything. He had been thrust into a role he never expected. But deep down, Mia knew that Luke was not the same man he had been when they were together. He had changed just as she had. And maybe, just maybe, they could figure this out together. "I don't know how to do this," Luke said after a long pause. "But I'll try. For them." Mia's eyes softened as she looked at him, a flicker of hope igniting inside her. Maybe there was a chance after all. But it wouldn't be easy. It never was. But with Luke's willingness to try, maybe they could find a way forward. Maybe they could build something new, something that wasn't broken. The silence between them was thick, but for the first time in a long time, it wasn't uncomfortable. It was filled with the possibility of a future they hadn't expected. A future that could be theirs if they were willing to work for it. "I never thought it would be this hard." The silence between Mia and Luke had stretched on for what felt like hours, but neither of them moved. Luke stood there, his mind racing with a million thoughts. He couldn't understand why Mia had kept this secret from him for so long. He couldn't grasp how she had managed to raise their children without him knowing. But more than that, there was something else, something deeper. He wasn't just hurt. He was angry, frustrated, and completely unsure of how to move forward. Mia had always been someone he trusted, someone he loved, but this was something entirely different. He never imagined that his children were living just next door, hidden from him for years. "I know this is a lot," Mia said, breaking the silence. Her voice was calm, but there was a slight tremor in it. "But I need you to understand that I did this because I thought it was the only way to protect them. I thought that keeping you away from them was the right thing to do." Luke glanced at her, his face softening just a little. "Protect them from what?" he asked, his voice low, the confusion still there. Mia hesitated, her gaze flicking to the kids in the next room, still blissfully unaware of the conversation happening just a few feet away. "From the life you have," she said quietly. "From the life we had." Luke frowned. He wanted to argue, wanted to say that he could have done things differently, that he wasn't the same man he used to be. But Mia's words stung, cutting deeper than he cared to admit. The life they had was not one he was proud of. It was filled with power struggles, constant pressure, and expectations that he had never quite been able to escape. He had worked hard to build an empire, but it had come at a cost, especially when it came to his personal life. "I didn't want them to be caught in that," Mia continued, her voice breaking as she spoke. "I didn't want them to feel like they had to be someone they weren't. I didn't want them to live in a world where they were just another part of your world." Luke's chest tightened as he listened to her. He understood now. Mia wasn't just protecting their children from the world he had built. She was protecting them from the man he used to be, the man who had failed her, the man who had failed them all. "But Mia," Luke said softly, stepping closer to her, "I'm not that person anymore." He paused, searching her eyes for any sign of belief. "I've changed. I've been through a lot these past few years, and I'm not the same person I was when we were together. I want to be a part of their lives, of our lives." Mia looked at him, her eyes searching his face. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that the man standing in front of her was the man who could be the father their children needed. But there was so much uncertainty. She had spent so long protecting them from the world that now, it felt impossible to let go of the walls she had built. "I don't know how to do this," Mia whispered almost to herself. "I don't know how to bring you into their lives after all this time." Luke's heart ached as he heard her words. He knew it wouldn't be easy. It wasn't just about him and Mia anymore. It was about the kids, their future, and the new reality they would all have to navigate together. "We'll take it one step at a time," Luke said, his voice steady. "I know I can't just walk back into your life and everything be perfect. I'm not asking for that. But I want to try. I want to be there for them, for you, for our family." Mia nodded slowly, her heart heavy with doubt but also with a flicker of hope. Maybe this was the first step to something new. Maybe, just maybe, they could build something together again, but it would take time, trust, and a whole lot of patience. The road ahead would be long and uncertain, but for the first time in years, Mia allowed herself to believe that there might be a way forward. Luke was ready to fight for their future, and maybe, just maybe, she was too. "I've never felt so conflicted in my life." Luke stood in the doorway looking at Mia, his eyes still uncertain but filled with determination. He had promised to take things slow, to respect her boundaries and the children's space, but how could he keep his distance when everything in him screamed to be closer, to be a part of their lives? Mia hadn't said much after their last conversation. She was keeping her distance, unsure of what to expect, just as much as Luke was. The walls between them, built from years of separation and hidden truths, seemed too tall to scale. But they had to try. The kids were everything now. Mia had done everything on her own to raise them, to protect them from the chaos Luke had left behind. And now that chaos was standing right in front of her, asking for a second chance. But was that even possible? Could Luke really change? Could they rebuild what had been broken so long ago? She glanced at him again, unsure. He looked like the same man but also different. There was something in his eyes now, a softness, a longing that hadn't been there before. He wasn't just asking to be a part of their lives, he was asking to be a father. And Mia? Mia wasn't sure if she was ready to let go of all the control she had over the life she had built for them. She didn't know if she could trust him. But there was something in his voice, something in the way he looked at her, that made her want to believe. "I'm not asking for everything right now," Luke said quietly, his voice calm yet full of sincerity. "I just want to be there. For you. For them. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm willing to figure it out. Together." Mia's heart twisted in her chest. She wanted to believe him, more than anything, but the scars of their past still lingered in the back of her mind. She had spent years fighting for their family, years building a life without him, and now she had to decide if she was willing to tear down the walls she'd worked so hard to build. "We'll see," she said finally, her voice soft but firm. "But it's going to take time. You can't just walk in and expect everything to be okay." Luke nodded, his face serious but understanding. "I get it," he said. "I'm not rushing you. But I'm here. I'll be here whenever you're ready." The words felt like a promise, and for the first time in a long time, Mia felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this could work. Maybe they could find a way to make this work. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions. Luke came by every day just to spend time with the kids. He didn't push, didn't try to force anything. He just showed up. He played with them, laughed with them, and slowly began to build a bond with each of them. It wasn't easy. The kids were wary of him at first, unsure of who he was and why he was suddenly in their lives. But slowly, very slowly, they started to warm up to him. Mia watched from a distance, her heart heavy with doubt but also filled with something else. Something she hadn't felt in a long time. She didn't know if she was ready to open up to Luke again, but she saw the way he was with the kids. He wasn't perfect, but he was trying. And that was more than she had expected. There were moments of laughter, moments of joy, and even moments of quiet comfort. Luke was learning how to be a father, how to be the man Mia needed him to be. It wasn't easy, but it was a start. And for the first time in a long time, Mia felt like she could breathe again. The walls that had once kept them apart were starting to crumble, and maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for them to build something new. Something better. But Mia knew it wasn't going to be simple. There would be bumps along the way, moments of doubt, but for now she was willing to try. She was willing to believe that maybe they could have a future together as a family. For the first time in years, Mia allowed herself to feel hope. It was small, fragile, but it was there. And it was enough to keep her moving forward. "I can't believe how much things have changed." Luke had been a constant presence in their lives for the past few weeks. It was strange seeing him interact with the kids, seeing him try so hard to be a father. Mia still wasn't sure how she felt about it. There were days when she saw the man she had once loved, the man who could be the father their children needed. And then there were days when she felt unsure, uncertain, scared even that she was making the wrong choice. But the kids were happy. That much she could see. They were starting to warm up to Luke slowly but surely. It wasn't easy. The kids had questions. Questions about why Luke had been gone for so long. Questions about why he hadn't been a part of their lives. And Mia? Mia struggled to answer them. She had kept so many secrets, and now she was facing the consequences. Luke was trying, and that was something Mia couldn't ignore. But trust? Trust was still something she wasn't ready to give. There was a part of her that still couldn't let go of the past, a part of her that wanted to protect the children from getting hurt again. She had been hurt so many times before, and the last thing she wanted was for them to feel the same way. One evening, as the kids were getting ready for bed, Mia and Luke sat down on the couch together. The silence between them was comfortable now, not as awkward as it had been in the beginning, but there was still something hanging in the air. Mia glanced at Luke, who was watching the kids with a soft smile. "They're getting so big," she said quietly. "They are," Luke replied, his voice low. "It's hard to believe sometimes. It feels like just yesterday when I was just a guy who had no idea I had 3 kids." Mia's heart ached at his words. It had been so long since she'd heard him talk like that, so long since she had seen him with such vulnerability. She hadn't realized just how much he had changed until now. He wasn't perfect and he didn't have all the answers, but he was trying. "I don't know how to do this," Mia said, her voice shaky. "I don't know how to trust again, how to let you in. I've spent so long protecting them from everything. And now you're here. And I don't know if I'm ready for it." Luke turned to face her, his expression serious. "I get it. I do. But I'm not asking you to do this alone. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. You don't have to trust me all at once. We can take it slow. But I want to be a part of their lives. I want to be the father I should have been." Mia looked at him unsure. Her heart was torn in two. She knew Luke wasn't asking for everything, but it felt like he was asking for something she wasn't ready to give. "I just don't want them to get hurt," she said softly. "I don't want them to feel abandoned again." Luke reached out, his hand gently touching hers. "I'm not going to leave," he said, his voice filled with conviction. "I'm not going to make the same mistakes I made before. I'm not going to walk away." The sincerity in his voice made Mia's heart ache even more. She wanted to believe him more than anything, but it was hard. The past had taught her not to trust, not to hope. But the way Luke was looking at her now, the way he was there for the kids, it made her think that maybe, just maybe, he was telling the truth. Maybe he could change. Maybe they could rebuild something together, piece by piece. The next day, Luke came over to spend the day with the kids. They had planned a trip to the park, and Mia could see how excited they were to spend time with him. It was the first time they'd gone out like this, just the 5 of them like a family. Luke had planned the whole day, and as they all piled into the car, Mia couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. Maybe they could be a family again. But even as she felt that hope, she knew that it wouldn't be easy. There would be setbacks, moments of doubt, but for the first time in a long time, Mia felt like they were taking a step forward. And that was enough to keep her going. "I wasn't sure what to expect that day at the park." The kids had been so excited, so full of energy, it was hard not to feel a little hopeful. Luke had been doing everything he could to show Mia that he was serious about being a part of their lives. He was patient, understanding, never pushing too hard, but always there when they needed him. It felt like a fresh start, even if the past was still lurking in the background, ready to pull them back into the storm at any moment. Mia sat on a bench watching the kids, smiling to herself as she saw them laughing with Luke, running around and playing like any normal family would. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe things could be different. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. The day had been perfect so far, but as the afternoon wore on, Mia started to feel that familiar pang of doubt. What if this wasn't real? What if Luke was just pretending, just saying the right things to get back into their lives, but then he would eventually disappear again like he always did? But then she saw the way he looked at the kids. So full of love, so dedicated, and something inside her shifted. Maybe she had been wrong to doubt him. Maybe he was really trying this time. As they packed up to leave, Luke walked over to Mia, his face beaming with happiness. "They had a blast," he said, his voice warm. "Thanks for letting me be a part of it." Mia nodded, her heart swelling. "I'm glad they had fun," she said, trying to keep her emotions in check. Luke paused for a moment, his smile fading slightly. "Mia, I know I've messed up. I know I've hurt you and the kids. But I want you to know that I'm here. For you, for them, for us. I'm not going anywhere." His words hit her harder than she expected. She had been so guarded, so scared to let him in again, that she hadn't realized how much she had been hoping for this moment. She wanted to believe him more than anything. "I'm not asking for everything," Luke continued, his eyes earnest. "I just want a chance to make things right." Mia took a deep breath, the weight of his words settling over her. She wanted to say something, but the words felt stuck in her throat. She had waited so long for this moment, but now that it was here, she wasn't sure if she was ready to trust again. The silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was full of possibilities, full of hope. "We'll take it one step at a time," Mia finally said, her voice soft but firm. "I can't promise anything right now, but I'll try. I'll try to trust you again." Luke's face lit up with relief, his eyes shining. "That's all I ask," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "One step at a time. We'll do this together." The drive home was quiet, but it was a different kind of silence than before. There was a new understanding between them, a new beginning, even if it was just the start of a long journey. Mia glanced over at Luke, watching him as he drove, and for the first time in years, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe they could rebuild what had been broken. Maybe they could find a way to make this work for themselves and for their children. The road ahead was uncertain, and there would be challenges, but for the first time, Mia felt like they were moving in the right direction. She didn't know what the future held, but she was willing to take that first step, to believe that maybe, just maybe, this time things would be different. "I didn't expect to feel this way." Things were moving so fast, but for once they felt like they were finally moving in the right direction. The days were blending together in a strange, almost dreamlike way. Luke was coming around more often now, spending time with the kids, making the effort to really get to know them. The kids were starting to open up to him little by little. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Mia watched it all happen from the sidelines, trying to remain cautious, not getting too comfortable just yet. She had spent so much time alone, guarding herself and the children from the world Luke had once been a part of. Letting him back in was one thing, but allowing herself to trust again? That was a different challenge. One evening, as they all sat down for dinner, something shifted. The conversation wasn't forced, it was easy. The kids were talking about their day at school, their latest adventures, and Luke was listening intently, asking questions, genuinely interested. It was such a simple thing, but for Mia it felt like a breakthrough. It felt like he was really trying to be a part of their lives, and for the first time she could see it. She could see him trying to be the father they deserved. After dinner, Luke stayed behind to help Mia clean up, just like old times. It was strange, but it felt natural, comfortable even. "You're really doing this, aren't you?" Mia said, a hint of surprise in her voice. Luke glanced at her, his eyes warm. "I've got no other choice," he said, his voice steady. "I want to be here. For you, for them. I want to make up for lost time." Mia paused, her hand lingering on the dish she was drying. She had always wondered if Luke would ever be the man she needed him to be, but now as she looked at him, there was something different in his eyes. Something real. She was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, he was. "I'm still figuring it out," Mia admitted, her voice soft. "I'm still figuring out how to let go of the past, how to trust again. But I'm trying." Luke stepped closer, his voice lowering slightly. "I'm not asking for everything, Mia," he said. "I know I can't undo the past, but I'm willing to fight for the future. For you. For us." She met his gaze, searching his eyes for any trace of doubt, but all she saw was sincerity. Maybe this was what they needed all along: time, patience, and the willingness to rebuild something that had been broken. "I'm scared," Mia whispered, her voice barely audible. "Scared of letting you in. Scared of letting myself believe again." Luke nodded, his face serious. "I get it. I'm scared too. But we don't have to do it alone. We can take this one day at a time." The weight of his words settled in her chest, And for the first time in a long time, Mia felt like she wasn't carrying the burden alone. She had spent so many years protecting her family, trying to hold everything together, but now it felt like she could breathe a little easier. She wasn't sure what the future held, but at least they were facing it together. The next few weeks were filled with more moments like this, small, everyday moments that felt like the foundation of something bigger. The kids continued to warm up to Luke, and Mia found herself slowly letting her guard down. It wasn't easy, but she was learning to trust again. She was learning that it was okay to let him in, that it was okay to let go of the fear that had kept her locked in the past for so long. There were still moments of doubt, moments when the old fears crept in, but they were becoming fewer and farther between. The more time they spent together, the more Mia realized that maybe, just maybe, they could build something new. Something stronger. They had both been through so much, but now they were in it together. Mia didn't know what the future would look like, but for the first time in a long time, she was willing to believe that they could make it work. They could be a family again, not the way they were before, but in a new way, a way that worked for all of them. And maybe that was enough. I never thought I would be here in this moment feeling like things might actually be okay. It had been months since Luke started showing up in their lives again, and every day, it felt more and more like they were really rebuilding something. Mia could see the way he looked at the kids now with so much love and devotion. He wasn't perfect, but he was trying, and that effort made all the difference. They had their challenges, sure. There were still moments of doubt, moments when Mia questioned whether this was really going to last. Could they really undo all the hurt from the past? Could they build a future together as a family? But every time she saw Luke with the kids, something in her heart softened. He wasn't asking for everything, he wasn't rushing them. He was letting them take things at their own pace, and that was something Mia never expected. One afternoon, after spending a quiet day at home, Luke came to Mia, his face serious but gentle. "Mia," he began, "I know things have been a little unexpected, but I need you to know how much this means to me. To have a chance to be with you, to be a father to our kids. It's everything. I've missed so much already, but I'm not going to let any more time slip by." His voice cracked slightly, and for a moment Mia felt the weight of it all. Luke wasn't just talking about himself. He was talking about the kids, their future, the life they could have together. And for the first time in a long time, Mia felt a flicker of hope, the kind of hope she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. "I know I've made mistakes," Luke continued, his eyes filled with sincerity. "But I'm not going anywhere. I'm here, and I'm ready to do whatever it takes to be the man you need me to be." Mia looked at him, searching his face. She had heard these kinds of promises before, but something about the way Luke spoke now, the way he was looking at her, made her believe him. She could see the change in him. He wasn't the same man who had walked away years ago. "I'm still scared," Mia admitted quietly. "Scared of what could happen if I let go of the past, scared that this won't last." Luke reached out and gently took her hand, his grip firm but comforting. "We don't have to have all the answers right now. We'll take this one step at a time. But I want you to know that I'm in this for the long haul. For you. For the kids. For our family." Mia felt tears welling up in her eyes. It wasn't just the words he was saying. It was the way he was saying them, the sincerity, the commitment that she could feel in every part of him. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she could truly believe in them. They could make this work. Slowly but surely, the walls she had built around her heart were starting to come down. It wouldn't be easy, and they would have their struggles. But Mia knew that as long as they kept moving forward together, as long as they both kept trying, there was a chance. A real chance for them to rebuild what had been broken. The next few months were a testament to their growth, to their patience with each other. Luke continued to show up for the kids, never rushing, never demanding, just being there day after day. Mia began to trust him again, little by little. She watched him with the kids, with her, and saw the love and dedication in his actions. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for Mia, that was enough. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was carrying the weight of everything alone. Luke was right there beside her every step of the way. And though they still had a long road ahead, Mia couldn't help but feel that maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other. They had made it this far, and with each day they were learning how to be a family again. They were learning how to trust, how to love, and how to forgive. Together they were building something new, something better. And for the first time, Mia allowed herself to believe in the possibility of a future with Luke. A future that could be different, better, and full of love. It wasn't going to be easy, but with him by her side, Mia knew they could face anything.